Thank you, hello everyone, and welcome to the annual JammerProHD Game of the Year Game Awards. It's been a tradition here on the channel that every year we rank down the top 10 games that I played this year that I personally thought were my favorites that truly defined 2020 for me. These games didn't necessarily all come out in 2020, but it were games that I played this year and really were defining experiences for me. I have been so excited to make this video all year, having played nearly 50 games across multiple platforms this year, so come down with me, come on a journey as we go down the best games of 2020. Starting with number 10. Golf Store. You may be surprised to see like a golfing indie game on my top 10 games of 2020, and this is actually one of the first games I even played of the year. I've heard a lot of good things about this game over the couple of years since this game came out, and I wasn't really sure what it was all about. I mean, what's so good about a golfing game? I mean, you've played one, you've played them all, right? But no, Golf Story is unlike any golfing game you might ever expect. Beyond clever game mechanics and really great music and pixel art, which really sold this game was, and of course with no pun intended with the title of this game, it was its story. I never would have imagined a golf game having like RPG mechanics and like a really fun and entertaining story. The writing in this game is absolutely top notch and is a ton of fun. The framework is generally what you'd expect it to be. Some young aspired golfer wanting to take on the cup and win the blah blah blah. You know, it's the basic same premise setup as you'd expect, but it's the dialogue and the characters and the writing is just, it's just hilarious, and it was such a fun experience, and I had so much fun with this game. Going through the story, unlocking new collectible clubs, and taking on the challenges of a wide variety of different courses, this game is an absolute gem. And I highly encourage anyone who's interested to pick it up maybe next time it's on sale or something. It's just so much fun. Let's move on to number 9. Astral Chain. The stage is set where you and your twin sibling, whether you choose the brother or sister, are enrolled in a police task force called Neuron. There's been these mysterious rifts opening up across the world, letting in these dangerous alien creatures called Chimera. Creatures that are invulnerable to guns and all regular weapons. Neuron started experimenting with a new special weapon, using Chimera against Chimera. Drivers are then bound to these captured Chimera by the means of an astral chain. They can then be used in combat scenarios and significantly enhance the ability of the driver. It's up to you to solve the mystery of why these rifts keep opening, who are the Chimera and what do they want to do with the human race, and to stop the forces of evil before it's too late. Being a game developed by Platinum, you'd expect it to be a very action combo focused heavy game, but you'd be quite surprised that it actually strikes a really great balance between like the really high energy and adrenaline of boss fights and enemy encounters with a lot more slower paced section and with investigations of crime scenes, interrogating and talking to people in the streets, which really adds to the overall world building. One thing I have to say, as you can see right here from the gameplay, that this game is just truly cinematic. The blend from immediate gameplay to these unbelievably choreographed cutscenes is absolutely breathtaking. So I got this game when it first came out last year, played it a little bit and had a lot of fun, but I think I was just playing other games at the time and got distracted and I just never got around back to it. Then earlier this year, I gave it another chance, gave it another go, and wow, what an amazing experience this game is. I mentioned before how I was totally obsessed with the futuristic aesthetic with all like the holograms and all the crazy weird technology, but once you get really into the story and gameplay mechanics, that's where this game really shines. And when it comes to those kind of action games with really complex button combinations and like memorizing combos and stuff, I'm never really that good at it. I just don't really have that finger dexterity or at least memorization to get really good at those kinds of games. And that's something I really appreciate about Astral Chain because it took a little bit of a different approach. Your basic attack is done by just mashing the trigger button over and over and over. Where the complexity of the combat comes in is using your Chimera and using the spatial awareness of where you're fighting to kind of like use this other second character to your advantage while you're in battle. It really didn't take long for the combat of this game to truly click with me, and I saw myself getting better as the game progressed. As you unlock different Chimera and new abilities that you can use with each of the individual Chimera, there was just so much depth to an otherwise very simple combat system. I said it up top, but the aesthetic of this game is top notch. I thought they did a really great job of pacing out the action and the high adrenaline of boss fights with more slower and exploration focused missions. After playing through this game, I truly fell in love with its world and characters. This game was an amazing experience. and I had so much fun with this game. Let's move on to number 8. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Age of Calamity takes place 100 years prior to Breath of the Wild, telling the story that was hinted at in a ton of Link's memories throughout Breath of the Wild. This was a great opportunity to get to know all these characters that were only in the limelight so often in Breath of the Wild, and to the benefit of this game being of the Dynasty Warriors style, it gives you the opportunity to play as all these different new characters. Play as more than just Link, but you can play as Zelda, the other champions and stuff, and other unlockable characters. You'll go through swarms of hundreds of enemies using crazy combos, taking on different boss enemies, while leveling up your characters, items, then of course being rewarded with bigger narrative beats and cutscenes. This may come as a surprise to you since it's pretty lower in this list, all things considered. I think it might be more to the case of since it came out a little bit later in the year and I only barely finished playing it recently. I've always really enjoyed the warrior style gameplay, starting with Hyrule Warriors, and I also did play Fire Emblem Warriors as well. So going into here to Age of Calamity, it was to no surprise I was going to really enjoy this game. It was really interesting to see Koei Tecmo's approach to the Warriors formula by taking a more like narrative focused game rather than like their previous titles like Fire Emblem and Hyrule Warriors 1. Where it was kind of more just a grab bag of those series Easter eggs, just throwing a bunch of scenarios together. And it was really more just about playing a bunch of just wacky scenarios. While here in Age of Calamity, the structure was a lot different. It was more narrative based. It was more of a linear approach with story beats and exploring the world. I also thought it was really cool as you progress further in the story, there were optional missions that appeared around the map, ways to power up your characters and stuff, little tasks where you can fulfill materials and such, unlock rewards, new weapons, and continue to power up your characters. It has to be said also that the voice cast in this game have gotten a lot better since reprising their roles in Breath of the Wild. There were a few characters in the original game that their acting wasn't the best, but I can happily report that they've really honed their craft since that previous game. And more than anything, it's just been amazing to see these characters again and be back in the world of Breath of the Wild. This game is a fantastic experience and is a great tie-in to, of course, Breath of the Wild. If you're not a fan of the warrior style gameplay, I totally respect that, and you're welcome to just like watch the cutscenes online or something. But it was still a really great experience. I had such a fun time playing this game. Moving up the list, let's go to number 7. Objection! Ace Attorney 4 through 6. The Ace Attorney games are essentially visual novels. It's a lot of text, a lot of reading, but there is really compelling gameplay that goes along with it. Before cases, you'll investigate crime scene, looks for clues and stuff, and evidence that you can potentially use in the next day when you go back to court. In the court is where the real drama hits. By carefully reading witness testimonies, it's up to you to find the contradiction and to figure out what actually happened that night and who committed the murder. With each day you play in court case you get through, it almost feels like you're kind of going through a TV show or an anime, where with the more you progress and the more immersed you are in the story, it makes you craving to know what's gonna happen next, who was the murderer, what's gonna happen to Phoenix and the gang. It's a really amazing game series, and it's one of those games that's really hard to describe. It makes a lot more sense when you actually get your hands on the game. I realized that yes, this is 3 games taking up the same slot, but I did play them right in a row, and I mean Ace Attorney Trilogy 1 through 3 counts as a single game, so I'm just counting 4 through 6 as its same package as well. I first played the original trilogy of Ace Attorney many years ago at this point, and I just like, oh my gosh, I absolutely fell in love with the characters, the story, the gameplay. It was just like, honestly, the Ace Attorney Trilogy is probably one of my favorite games of all time. I was a little weary going into these later release titles because I'd heard so much praise about the original 3, and I hadn't heard nearly as much about these later ones, not knowing if they varied in quality or whatnot. But I can officially report they are just as good as the original 3, and if you're an Ace Attorney fan in any form, you definitely have to play through the entire series. I had so much fun interacting with these characters again, meeting new faces and such, and each game bringing like different new gameplay mechanics. It was just like such a blast to play through. After playing 4 through 6 and all their DLC, it is even more cemented in my heart that I'm such an Ace Attorney fan, and I love these games so much. I obviously can't get too much into 4 through 6, obviously due to spoilers, but next time the original trilogy is on sale on Switch, I highly encourage anyone who's interested to give it a shot. It is such an amazing series, and I cannot wait for the next entry of Ace Attorney. Next up, let's move on to number 6. Among Us. To no one's surprise, of course this is going to be on my list because this was one, if not the biggest game of 2020. I had so much fun playing with you guys, playing with friends and such, There's a reason this game is immensely popular. It is so much fun to be able to interact with your friends this way, be able to have these social experiences that we've been so desperately lacking in this year. This game offers such a unique experience compared to really any other game on the market. I truly think it became popular at the perfect time. While I personally don't play this game nearly as aggressive as we did like towards late summer and such, it's still a game that I pick up quite frequently. It's so easy to just hop on with friends, get a few matches in and such. It's provided so many funny inside jokes and memorable experiences because each round is so unique and you remember all the funny moments that happen to it. It's always so fun. Like after a round completes, you spend almost just as much time recounting the previous round as you did playing it. This only continues my excitement to what the developers will continue to bring to the game with the new map and future new updates and such. I can see us continuing to come back to this game throughout next year and even perhaps years to follow. We're halfway through it all. Let's move on to number 5. Super Mario 3D All-Stars. There's not much that needs to be said about Mr. Video Game himself, Mario. I remember when this game was rumored that a lot of people were like, no way. No way would Nintendo actually remake these classic 3D All-Star games. No way they would include them all in the same bundle. All 3 of these games are straight up masterpieces. And the fact that they're all in the same collection is outright criminal. Sure, it's just the original versions of these games. It isn't a full-blown remake that perhaps some of the games in this collection could have benefited from. But the fact that these games are much more accessible, and for like the case of Sunshine, for the first time ever on a different platform than the original release. All 3 of these games are such phenomenal experiences, and I had just so much fun revisiting these games. The 3D All-Stars pack truly reminded me how much I love these games. Man, it was just so much fun revisiting Sunshine, giving Galaxy another shot. I've been obsessed with that game's soundtrack for years now, and it was great to re-experience that game. And then of course, Mario 64. While most of the experience of that game is fighting against the camera, it is still truly impressive that how well designed the physics system is with the limited technology they had at the time. They truly did an amazing job, and all 3 of these games deserve the title of masterpiece. When this game first came out, I was addicted, playing it nearly every night, and that's why it easily has to make it here in the top 5 games of my year. And with that being said, let's move on to number 4. Ring Fit Adventure. I know what you might be thinking, a workout game? That sounds so boring. Well, you would be actually really surprised. Don't get me wrong, I'm a person who likes being active. However, if I'm not having fun, I'm not gonna do it. Until Ring Fit Adventure, this was the first time ever I looked forward to working out and had actively fun while I was doing it. There's a lot packed into this experience. There's a story mode, the main campaign, where you fight a big bad goon who's trying to steal all the happiness of the world or whatever, and you go stage by stage, running through these beautifully designed landscapes, jumping over obstacles and stuff, while also running into enemies where you enter, get this, a turn-based battle system. I know, it sounds wild, but it totally works. During your turn, you'll do fitness skills, and as you perform these little workouts, you'll do damage to the enemies on screen. As a matter of fact, if you line up the color of the workout, which is synopsis with what muscle of the body you're working out, whether arms, abs, legs, or yoga, and those will do extra damage to enemies of that color. So it's actually a lot of fun having strategy of what moves to use. Do you want to use a more powerful move that'll attack a single enemy, or do you want to use a little bit weaker move attacking multiple enemies at once? Beyond that, with enemies having different colors and whatnot, there's a little bit of strategy involved, and that kind of pushes you out of your comfort zone to use different muscles and different workouts that you might have not done otherwise. Beyond that, there's a handful of mini games to play, there's collectible clothing to unlock, different smoothies you can craft that can buff your abilities while in combat. Ring Fit is honestly such a phenomenal experience, and as far as when it comes to a workout, I have seen a significant improvement in my muscle gain since the beginning of this year since playing. It was so amazing seeing myself progress week after playing this game, and seeing myself up the difficulty as I continue to get even better at these fitness skills, getting better at the game, and visibly seeing myself get stronger. What I'm trying to say is I'm super buff right now, and it's all thanks to Ring Fit Adventure. It is a really great way to have a lot of fun while being active, and with a lot of different accessibility options and toggleable difficulty, and all the amazing positive reinforcement that the NPCs give you as you're working out, cheering you on as the music's bumping. It is such a great experience, and it's a game even after beating the story, I continue still to go back to work out with on a daily basis. Alright, with that out of the way, let's move on to number 3. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Xenoblade is an open-world RPG that takes place on the planet of, well, it's not necessarily a planet, because the inhabitants of this world actually live on these great beings called Titan. A long time ago, there was a war between the Mechonis and the Bionis, the Bionis consisting of all biological life, while the Mechonis hosted life that lived inside machines. The game sets the stage that there was this massive war between the Bionis and the Mechonis that was never understood why. Many years later, you now find yourself as Shulk, the messy-haired blonde boy with aspirations for a better future. But then all of a sudden, after years and years of peace, the Mechonis return and attack the colony, causing absolute chaos. The combat system in this game is truly unique, not being turn-based, but instead having a hotbar with different cooldowns on moves you can do. However, the most important thing about these moves is the spatial awareness of the battlefield. Some moves will be more effective if you're attacking from behind or the side of an enemy. Some moves work better when linked together. For example, if an enemy is stunned by one of your partners, you can follow up to topple them. So then the enemy you're fighting falls to the ground and is unable to move for a period of time. It's really about balancing your arts between you and your party members. And the game does a really good job at dishing out new mechanics as you continue to progress throughout the game. And there's a lot of fun experimenting, playing with different party members and testing out what's going to be the most effective lineup for your team. For being a 10-year-old game, this remake truly did this game justice, making these worlds really feel alive. And without question, just like the title alone, this is the definitive experience of the game. Now I mean this when I say it, that the Xenoblade soundtrack just very well may be one of the greatest video game soundtracks to have ever been created. Some of the tracks in this game are just mind-blowing. This is not an exaggeration, saying that I listen to Xenoblade songs on a nearly daily basis. And to this day, I still get chills whenever I hear Memories or even just the title screen itself. There's no better word to describe, other than that this game is simply magical. The characters, the story, the music, the environments, the art, the gameplay, the combat, the customization. It is just a masterpiece of a title, and it is an absolute must play. We're getting close to the end here. Let's move on to number 2. Dragon Quest XI. Yet another open world RPG, and it was so hard to pick between Xenoblade Chronicles and Dragon Quest XI, especially since I played them back to back. Here in Dragon Quest, the story is much more simple. They just outright say it, you're the chosen one, and it's up to you to save the day from the big bad evil, and the evil's just bad because it's bad. But you know what? I actually really appreciated that simplicity. The combat, admittedly, is pretty traditional when it comes to like turn-based stuff, and you know how it is for me. I usually hate turn-based games. But there actually was an interesting layer of depth where you can kind of like combo using like status effects and stuff, and once you kind of figure things out, it's a lot of fun. There was something magical that drew me to this game when I first played the Dragon Quest XI demo last year. When I was playing through it, I don't know, something just spurred in me. It's like, man, like, it was just like one of those games where it's like, these towns I'm exploring, these characters I'm talking to. It was that Ratatouille moment where it kind of just sent me back to my childhood and just kind of not doing much, but just enjoying the moment to moment of exploring, talking to villagers, walking around in towns and such. It's really something I can barely explain. They did take the silent protagonist approach with this game, but what really carries this game is that of its characters. We have Veronica, the hot-headed little girl that honestly has some of the best dialogue in the game. The best is when, you know, she's trying to tell you, oh, we should help someone, and you just say, nah, let's not do it, and she just rips you apart. Then there's Eric, who just suits perfectly as the main character's best friend character, and admittedly, he's a little too hot for his own good. Then there's Sylvando. Oh, don't get me started on Sylvando. I love this man with every fiber of my body. Honestly, he's the true star of this game. I can't even handle him. Then there's Rab, the grandpa character, which, oh my gosh, I can't even with Rab. He's perfect in every way. For as great as everything else is in this game, I will say one thing is that the soundtrack, it's not the best. A lot of the tracks are pretty short and repeat themselves quite frequently, but I guess that is a testament to everything else that this game has to offer, that everything else is at such a high level of quality that it's worth getting through the game even with a not so great soundtrack. It's so hard to pick between the two, of Xenoblade 1 as well as Dragon Quest XI here. It's hard for me to pick favorites. I love them both so much. Each offers such a memorable experience, and both have been such defining games for me here in 2020. And speaking of which, we are down to the last one, the final one, my top game of 2020. But before we get to that, I think it's worth going through a couple of honorable mentions. At the beginning of the year, I made my way through Monster Hunter Iceborne, as well as Borderlands 3, as well as a couple of its DLC packs, and that was a lot of fun playing those games. I also played some really great indie games like A Short Hike and Bug Fables, both of which were really fun experiences. I also got into a lot of games that I played last year. I replayed Celeste, which is just always a pleasure to revisit. I finally played a multiplayer Stardew Farm, which was just so much fun. I still continue to have so much fun with that game, and now with the new update coming out, I can't wait to now make another farm again in 2021. I also aggressively played a lot of Luigi's Mansion 3 Scarescraper to grind for that golden vacuum. I had so much fun with the homies playing that game like non-stop for, I swear, weeks on end. It was nonsense fun. We were doing the same thing over and over and over, but you know what? We had a blast, and that's all that matters. And building off that, a bunch of us got into playing a lot of Rocket League recently too. Playing the Rumble mode with all the weird wacky power-ups and such. It's been a ton of fun playing those games. But anyways, as you've all been waiting for, my #1 game of 2020. Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door, such a solid RPG with great characters, battle mechanics, turn-based. It's just, I can't believe it. It won Game of the Year again for the 16th year in a row. Wow, I can't believe it. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching this year's, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. #1, of course, to no one's surprise, is Animal Crossing New Horizon. I already knew going into this year that Animal Crossing was going to be my favorite game of the year. I bet it had already been one of my most anticipated titles, not even for the past couple of years, but probably for the last 5. Well before this game was ever even announced, I had been always looking forward to the next entry in the Animal Crossing series, coming off the hype from New Leaf, and just so excited to see what else they could do with the mayor mechanics and being able to design the outside of your town, and they truly did not disappoint with this game. I have a countless amount of memories playing with you guys on Discord or on livestream, making well over 100 videos on this game alone in this year. And of course, with all that, it being the game that truly brought so many of us together, bringing so many new fans to this channel, it can't not be the most memorable game of this year. When this game first came out, what a magical experience it was. It felt like literally everyone was playing this game. It was so fun to every night be hanging out with different friends, checking out each other's islands, going fishing together. And then as of course the months progressed with new updates and new content coming to the game, I just have an endless amount of great memories with this game, and I truly do love it to death. And the Animal Crossing series has always held such a special place in my heart, being easily my favorite series of all time. And that is even more true now here with New Horizon. I have had an endless amount of fun with this game, continuing to come back to it constantly. And it is a game that I don't foresee putting down for a long, long time. 2020 has been a wild year, but I'll treasure all the great memories and gaming experiences we had. This year was such a blast, and thank you all so much for coming along for the ride of it. That is going to be it, the end of the JammerProHD Annual Game Awards. Thank you so much for joining me and for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big awesome like. And if you haven't already, definitely subscribe. Thank you all for such an amazing year. Thank you all for coming to this award show, and Happy New Year to you all. Thanks again, guys, so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. See ya!